As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. Good fellas, wise guys.
December 16th, 1985. A crew of Gotti's hitmen consisting of 4 shooters, along with a backup hit team consisting of another 4 guys, would ambush Gambino boss Paul Castellano and his driver and bodyguard Thomas Bellotti outside Sparks Steakhouse on East 46th Street in Manhattan, in front of a packed New York City full of New Yorkers out shopping for Christmas just 9 days away. The 4-man crew who ultimately executed the hit would include Gambino members John Carneglia, aka John Carnegs, Salvatore Fat Sal Scala, Eddie Lino, and Vinny Artuso. The second hit team consisted of Gambino members Angelo Ruggiero, Dominic Pizzonia, aka Skinny Dom, Joe Watts, and Anthony Rampino, aka Tony the Roach. But since the first crew of shooters handled their business correctly, the backup team, posted in a few different positions a few blocks away, never had to fire any shots. Eddie Lino, along with Salvatore Scala, who were brother-in-laws, were instructed their job was to take out the bodyguard Thomas Bellotti, while Carneglia and Artuso put their sights on Castellano. According to articles online, the crew was handed Russian-style fur hats and trench coats by Angelo Ruggiero, along with walkie-talkies at a final meeting to discuss the plan before the hit at an athletic field located near the East River in Manhattan. And while Sammy and Gotti sat across the street on East 46th Street and 3rd Avenue in a tinted-out Lincoln Town Car, the team took their positions. According to various articles online, Carneglia and Artuso posted by the entrance of Sparks, and when Bellotti pulled up to Sparks around 5 o'clock, after passing Gotti and Gravano without noticing them, Gravano radioed the 2 crews, letting them know it was time. As Castellano stepped out of his Lincoln Town Car, he was immediately ambushed by Carneglia, who hit him 5 times, leaving him face down on the sidewalk by the open car door, with his mouth and eyes wide open, holding a pair of leather gloves in his hand. It said Artuso's gun jammed and he never got any shots off, although following the hit he would be accused of really getting cold feet and freezing up. Eddie Lino and Sal Scala caught Bellotti in the head with multiple shots as he exited the car to go around to the passenger side, and ducked as he seen Castellano being shot. According to Gravano's testimony years after the hit, him and John Gotti drove by the hit scene where Gravano got a glimpse of Bellotti's body and said, quote, "He's gone." It said on top of the 2 hit crews, there was also multiple crash cars positioned at various intersections, ensuring there was no way Castellano was making away from his meeting that night. There were multiple reasons Gotti wanted Castellano gone, a major one being that Gotti feared Castellano would take out his crew first, after Gotti's childhood friend Angelo Ruggiero was caught on an FBI bug placed in his home discussing heroin trafficking with John's brother Gene Gotti. Ruggiero and Gene Gotti were also bad-mouthing Castellano and discussing mob business on the tapes, and Castellano was pushing for copies of the tape's transcripts, which Gotti and Ruggiero would put off for a long time, or at least long enough to take out Big Paul first. On top of Castellano wanting the transcripts, it's also been said a lot of the mobsters under Big Paul didn't respect him because he distanced himself from his earners because he seen them as street guys and saw himself as a businessman. It was also said Castellano was greedy with his crew, and in the 1980s he raised his kick-up fee from 10% to 15%, even though he had stacked up millions of dollars from legit business in the 1970s, while simultaneously choosing to keep the no drug dealing rule in place, which infuriated Gotti and his crew. Neil Della Croce, a Gambino underboss and very close friend of Gotti, kept Gotti calm for a while he stalled and kept the wiretap tapes of Ruggiero from Castellano, despite Castellano demanding them, until Della Croce died from cancer in 1985. The tapes ultimately would help the feds get a warrant to put a bug in Big Paul's home, which the FBI would get over 600 hours of recordings from, connecting the 5 families to the garment industry. Also around the same time, the FBI acquired information linking Castellano and Roy DeMeo to a multi-million-dollar international car theft ring, and Big Paul was looking at doing prison time, which led to DeMeo being whacked on Castellano's orders. According to Sammy LeBeau's new podcast, following the shooting, it was complete chaos outside of Sparks, with New Yorkers everywhere scrambling to avoid gunfire. And as Gravano and Gotti drove past the bodies, with Gotti driving, Sammy cracked his window to see if it was done and could see Paul on the sidewalk and could tell Bilotti was dead on the street. So they started driving back to Bensonhurst to meet Frank DeChico at Sammy's office so he could be picked up. Gravano said not even 3 minutes after the hit, he heard on the radio a news anchor saying, "Boss of the Gambino crime family gunned down gangland style in front of Sparks Steakhouse." After Gravano, Gotti, and DeChico met at the office, it said they discussed the hit a little bit before taking off to go prepare for war, expecting certain bosses in the commission to avenge Castellano. Sammy went on to say Gotti was supposed to hit the mattresses with his crew, while Sammy went and bunked with his crew. Sammy would go with Frank DeChico to a house in Staten Island and lay low, and said as the men were gathered in the office, everyone was, quote, panic-stricken, and Tommy Gambino pulled up as they were leaving, and Sammy told him to get the fuck out of there because that was his uncle lying in the street. In Staten Island, Gravano and DeChico would meet Frankie Botts and Joe Watts at one of Watts' apartments. According to Gravano, his wife Deborah at the time knew Sammy was behind the hit, or at least involved, after Sammy didn't return home the day of the hit, and she heard about it all over the news. The crew's panic following the hit faded after word got back to the hit crew that instead of other members in Cosa Nostra planning to retaliate, they were more or less shocked that they had the nerve to kill the boss of all bosses and cause a lot of other men to fear them. And slowly but surely, things would go back to normal business. The Gambinos held a meeting where Gotti was voted in as new boss, and they sent a message to the commission saying they don't know what happened to their former boss, but they voted Gotti in, and the commission accepted it. Although it's been said that Anthony Gaspipe Casso and Vincent the Chin Gigante may have conspired together to attempt a hit on John Gotti, and a sit-down was had between the two, ending with Gigante denying the claims. But Casso and Gigante are also said to have attempted to kill Gotti in the car bomb that blew up fellow Gambino member Frank DeChico. 7 years after the hit, Gotti would be sentenced to multiple life sentences without the possibility of parole by the federal court system for charges that included ordering the hits of Paul Castellano and Thomas Bilotti. Gotti's partner in crime would end up being the star witness for the government in the trial against Gotti. His testimony implicated not just his former boss, but numerous other members of organized crime as well, in a slew of various crimes including murders, conspiracies, racketeering, tax evasion, illegal gambling, and many other rackets. As for the rest of the crew who were present in the whacking of Big Paul and Bilotti, Eddie Lino, who shot Bilotti, was also gunned down cowboy style by the 2 New York City Mafia detectives who had personal family connections to Cosa Nostra and moonlighted as employees for Lucchese underboss Anthony Casso, aka Gaspipe, on orders from Gaspipe as part of his plot to overthrow the Gambino family. The detectives pulled Lino over on November 6, 1990, and shot him down in his car on the Belt Parkway in Brooklyn, New York. Lino was made a captain in 1986 following the famous Castellano hit, and was the man responsible for enlisting Thomas Karate Patera to take out Willie Boy Johnson for Gotti, after finding out Gotti's longtime friend was cooperating against him for years. It's been said Vincent the Chin Gigante was also in on this hit, looking to get revenge for Big Paul because Gotti was too hard to get with the FBI watching him so heavily at the time. John Carneglia, aka Carnegs, who took out Castellano during the hit and may have even shot Bilotti a few times as well. Carneglia was said to be one of Gotti's most trusted shooters over the years, as a key component in the Gotti crew, and is said to have a minimum of 6 bodies according to various online articles. One of them allegedly being John Favre, Gotti's neighbor who went missing after running over Gotti's son on his mini bike while Favre was driving home drunk in the 1980s. Carneglia beat one trial as a co-defendant of John Gotti's in the 1987 racketeering case, and then got a hung jury in a heroin trafficking case with Gotti's brother Gene. But both of the men would end up with 50-year sentences when they were retried in 1989. Vincent Vinny Artuso was supposed to be the other shooter to take out Big Paul along with Carneglia, but his gun jammed. Despite the rumors that he really froze up, he would eventually be made a Gambino captain and would somehow escape being one of Sammy's victims when Gravano turned informant, but would still end up in and out of prison in the 90s. Vinny Artuso would earn the nickname Vinny the Scumbag Artuso over time. Following his release from prison in 2016, he would start doing business in South Florida, but in 2021, Artuso would pass away from natural causes. Eddie Lino's brother-in-law and partner in taking out Bilotti, Salvatore Fat Sal Scala, is said to have also been the man responsible for getting rid of all the weapons used during the Big Paul hit, which were never recovered. Scalo also somehow avoided Sammy's testimony, and with Gotti and Gravano out of the picture, Scala actually became more relevant in the Gambino family. In 1999, he was promoted to captain and would run his own crew. But in May 2001, Scala was charged with extorting an adult music store in Long Island and sentenced to 5 years, and the feds would wait for him to finish serving his time before charging him in another extortion case where he would go on to get another 6 years. Scala would be denied a compassionate release request after being diagnosed with liver cancer in prison and would die on December 30th, 2008.